right, welcome everybody. We're so excited that you're here to learn some more about the write-on process. My name's Michaela Murphy-Zelaya. I'm one of the notes and comments editors for volume 51 of Mitchell Hamlin Law Review. And there's a couple other people who are going to introduce themselves as well.
Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen McDonald. I'm also a notes and comments editor, just like with Michaela, that's responsible for handling this write-on process. So glad everybody can join us.
Hi, everybody. I'm Carissa Hansen. I'm the editor-in-chief for Volume 51, and I'm very, very excited to be here with everybody tonight. I think Law Review is fantastic because you get to be part of this fun and big network of current associates, board members, and a Law Review alum. And so you'll really get to meet a lot of fun and interesting people that will kind of stick with you and help you throughout your career. So, and tonight's hopefully the start of that for a lot of you. So it's really exciting. I do want to pass it to Sophie Hill too, because we have our associate editor in chief. And so, Sophie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you want to say hi.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sophie Hill. As Krista said, I'm the associate editor-in-chief for Volume 51, and I am also very excited for you all to have the chance to join Law Review. It's probably the most rewarding experience of law school for me, so I really am very enthusiastic about it, and I hope you take the opportunity.
And I'll jump in real quick. I'm also Stephen Carver. I'm a notes and comments editor on Volume 51 as well. I'll echo what's been said already. Law Review is fantastic. I'm very excited about it. I'm really excited about Volume 51. And those of you who are considering participating right on, I'm a big fan of writing. So if you're going to join up, you're going to work with us, and we're going to make you write a really excellent long paper. And I love that. So happy you're here.
All right, so this is what we're going to go through today, starting just with some background about what Law Review is and what associates do. And then the bulk of our time we'll spend talking about the write-on process and exactly what that looks like, including some tips and tricks for a successful write-on. And then we'll end with questions. You can feel free to put questions in the chat throughout and we'll address them at the end, or you can also raise your hand at the end and we'll take any remaining questions that you have.
Great. Well, as Michaela mentioned, we're going to start off by talking a little bit about what Law Review is. And for those that listen to a presentation, whether it was the BAM students in the in-class presentations or blended students, where myself and Stephen Carver came in and spoke with you, the beginning part is going to sound pretty familiar. The second half of the presentation is going to go a little bit deeper into the write-on process, talking about the Blue Book and the case note. So it's going to be very valuable for you as well during that session. But the first part is going to sound a little bit repetitive for those that heard the in-class presentations. So first off, well, what is Law Review? And some people ask that question. Okay, well, yeah, I kind of heard about this, but what is it? Well, here at Mitchell Hamlin, it started all the way back in 1974. So 51 years, volume 51, and it did combine with the Hamlin University Law Journal. I think that was in the 40s. I think it was volume 41 or so. So it's been combined since then, and it's completely student run, right? So from the editor in chief, who you met, through the board down to the associates, which we hope that you will join in being for volume 51. And there is a faculty supervisor, the famous and infamous Professor Steenson, that does offer some guidance, but it is student run. So what is beneficial to that is that you have a lot of say, and you have a lot of you get to be very proactive in helping advance the journal and also the university and the reputation of the university. So you can see there what it's comprised of in terms of actual substance. It's articles that are written by students, whether they're from volume 51, some are on this call that are being published in volume in volume 51. Sorry, volume 50. And as well as practitioners. We've had state officials write articles, law professors across the country as well. So it does get a wide breadth of journals written, and it's available on your good old friendly Westlaw and Lexis, as well as the website, obviously. So this here is the board for volume 51. You've met a couple here. There's Chris and Sophie. And then as associates, the main groups that you'll have contact with are the notes and comments editors. So myself, Carver, Michaela, and then also Theo, and your managing editors. Those are the two people you're going to have, two groups that you have the main contact with throughout the year. Obviously, the other board members are available as well. But the notes and comments editors, they're the ones that really help you through the write-on, long paper process. And then the managing editors are the ones that are working with you on a weekly basis in terms of the assignments, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. So when do you apply? In term of now during the year, but at what stage? So if it's traditionally people after your 1L year, whether you're a part-time or full-time, traditionally after that, because it allows you to have at least 2 years on a large if you wish to go for a board position the following year. But really, for those that have 1 year of academic eligibility left, then that's fine too. You just obviously want to have that second year opportunity. So it is available. If you just have that 1 year, you'd have to be, have that, you wouldn't be able to graduate kind of mid-year. Associates need to be available for the full year so that you can be involved in the full production of that volume. So. And then why? When we look at the why, you heard a little bit of it already. I admit, I said this in the class presentations as well. I'll admit, I started out with just thinking it's just only great for the resume, and that's it. That's what I wanted to do. Well, it turned out to be so much more for me. It's as Krista mentioned, you really expand your network and you expand your community. And as a blended student, that was extremely valuable to me. Not being as on campus as much, you get to know your cohorts. But what Law Review has allowed me to do is expand that community, but also mentorship, right? So whether it's your managing editor that's helping you learn the Blue Book, learn grammar, or your notes and comments editor really being somebody you can lean on for the long paper. But even those individuals, you don't have to talk to them just about Law Review. I've picked their brains about other classes. Well, hey, what did you do for this class? So they've been there, and just even talking about just even your experience as a law student in general, it's really been enhance that experience. And then the long paper. So as Carver had mentioned, Stephen Carver had mentioned, that is something you do as an associate. And the benefit of doing it with Law Review is that you have your faculty supervisor, but then you also have that networking and that mentorship, which I spoke about, to help you get through that long paper process. So this is just a little bit more of a summary of just what I mentioned. Like I said, the resume builder, the exposure to many different areas of law. When you're reading and editing these articles from the practitioners and other students and law professors around the country, you're reading articles you never thought you'd read. It might be an area you didn't think you'd be interested in, but you're reading that, and also you're learning about different styles of writing that can be extremely valuable as you're growing as a writer and as you're growing as a law student as well. The bottom right there just talks about the credits. As an associate, you get 3 credits for the year, and you can kind of jostle those around and move them if you want to stay part-time. For those that are part-time, if you want to stay part-time, you can move those around. I did that to remain underneath that part-time threshold, but your academic advisor can help you with that as well. Board members in your second year, you get 5 credits for that year. So we addressed a little bit about this already, but as an associate, what do you do that for? What do you do that first year? There's that long paper, that third one from the left. And then, but the first 2, that's kind of the workhorse. That's what you're doing on sometimes, a couple times a month when you're kind of getting an assignment from your managing editor. It's conducting an authority check, and then you're going through the citations, right? So the authority check is really, what did that person write about? And what do they cite to? And does it match, right? Does it match? And just making sure that they are accurate and to the citation. And the citations, making sure it's accurate to our good old friend, the Blue Book. So you're going through the citations, but you're also going through grammar, whether that's above the line or below the line in parentheticals or whatnot. You're also really flexing that muscle and developing that grammar muscle. That's something that I really grew at. I was not as strong as that to begin with, to be honest, as an associate, but that's an area that I really, really benefited from. And then on the far right, that's the blog posts and just helping with some of those aspects of Law Review as well. So second year, won't spend too much time on this. As you can see on there, if you end up wanting to do a second year as a board member, as mentioned, the notes and comments editor, and then the managing editors. We spoke about that a little bit. The articles editor, that's a group that has more direct contact with the authors and kind of acts as a liaison through that. And then there's events that go on throughout the year that you can also become involved in as an engagement editor or whatnot. So there's lots of opportunity depending on your strength. If you love the blue book, there's lots of opportunity for that. If you love the writing, the long paper, there's a lot of opportunity for that. If you like that social engagement, a lot of opportunity. And here, we'll talk a little bit more about this so we can kind of skim through this, but this is just an overview of the dates. This is how you write on. There's a blue book quiz and then the case note. And then there's that registration link as well. So I think we can move to the next one because we'll go into that more depth. And just so everybody's aware, for accommodations, accessibility accommodations, it is available, and there is that contact there. And just to be note of the time frame, I believe it says 10 days on here. So just to make sure if you are requesting accessibility accommodation, just make sure that you're requesting that 10 days prior to the start of write-on so that things can be arranged appropriately.
Okay, so we're going to shift a little bit now to talking more about the write-on process itself and what it entails. But before we do that, we wanted to talk a little bit about why we use the write-on process. I know this was kind of a question that I had as an incoming associate doing the write-on process. So it's definitely a way for us to assess your abilities and help, determine who is going to be an associate for Volume 51. But it's also part training, and it is that first introduction to what you'll be doing as a law review associate. And so I think that's some helpful context for all of you as you participate, hopefully, in the write-on, is that you're going to feel maybe that there's a bit of a learning curve, and that learning curve does help you as an associate. So part training, part test, if you will. And then it helps incoming associates gain familiarity with law review style writing. So that's going to feel a little bit different than the writing you've done in LARC class, for example. Also helps you practice referencing multiple different sources at once. So the Chicago Manual of Style, Blue Book, and local rules, that's something you do as an associate. And then just working on attention to detail, ability to find and use relevant rules, and your writing ability. So those are the things we're trying to measure through write-on, but it's also an opportunity for you to just kind of get your first taste of work as an associate. And what are we looking for? We're looking for the ability of participants to use resources to find the right answers. You don't need to have a bunch of knowledge coming in or topic specific knowledge or anything like that. It's more about, can you use the resources that you have and are given to find those right answers? Also, perseverance and ability to work independently. Those are things that associates on law review, those are skills that associates on law review need to have. Additionally, we know that this is a short time frame, so we're just looking for you to do the best you can with the time that you have. We're not expecting the kind of paper that might come out of working on it for an entire semester or an entire year. We know that it's just a couple of weeks. On that same vein, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for effort and using those resources. And again, not looking for prior knowledge of the topic or prior knowledge of a lot of law review style writing or how to use the white pages of the Blue Book, which we'll talk about in a minute. Those are things that you're going to learn as you do the process. Okay, so a few more things about the process itself. All submission and grading are completely anonymous. So they are graded, the submissions are graded by current board members, but you'll be assigned an anonymous name and everything will be kept anonymous. So, if you know somebody or don't know somebody, that does not impact your write-on score at all. The grading's done by a rubric, which will be shared with you when you receive all your write-on information. And then the submission is your entire application. So we don't take GPAs, resumes, anything like that. We're just looking at that application. A couple of things just to keep in mind: plagiarism is not tolerated. This is a very individual project as well, so you may not work with others. It's a closed universe case note. That means you'll be given a packet of materials for the case note and outside research and sources is strictly prohibited. And then you will be required to turn in a signed honor pledge with your quiz prior to starting the case note. And that's just to make sure that everybody's on a fair playing field.
Okay, so now we're just gonna dive a little bit more into the two pieces of write-on, the blue book and then the case note. So starting with the blue book quiz. So as mentioned, it's a week long. Now we don't expect it to take the whole week. You know, if you need to spread it out during the whole week, absolutely. I know I did. I kind of spread it out and did it in little chunks. But there are people that hammer it out in one night, right? So that's just meant so that you can fit it into your life and a lot of your other obligations. What is it? Right? What is the blue book quiz? Well, you can see there, it's going to test two things, right? It's going to be testing your ability to, back to the initial slide that we talked about as a first year associate. Well, what do? You do citations and authority checks in your assignments that involve grammar as well as accuracy in those citations. So we're sorting out the balance in between that. We're finalizing that now, but just so you know, last year it was 20 questions on citation, 20 questions on authority check. It's going to be a little bit different this year, but you'll obviously get that information. So the citations, it's there will be a blue book session a week from tomorrow that's going to really go into depth in terms of how to use the blue book, how to actually do the quiz. But just it's as you would suspect, right? You get a citation and then you have to go and you have to correct all of the errors with that. And the way that basically the mechanics of how you do it, you turn the track changes on your word and we can kind of see where you're changing it from there. So there's an example there, good old Darth Vader. On next week from tomorrow, again, we'll dive into that a little bit, but it really tests your ability to identify, well, what are you looking at? And then kind of problem solve and identify, okay, well, what is it? And then how do I need to correct that? And that obviously is going to involve different layers of going through the blue book, the white pages of that, not those blue pages that you dealt with in LARC. It's the white pages, the one that's longer. But you really become familiar with that. Authority checks. That's, as you can see there, there's going to be a quotation, there's going to be a citation, you just have to match, or you have to testing that pin site. And so you have to go and you have to use Westlaw, Lexis, whatever your friendly online source is, and then just pick the correct answer based on multiple choice. So pretty straightforward, but it really tests that ability to problem solve and to sort through it and find it and track it down in that blue book.
Okay, then the second part is the case note. So after you complete and return your blue book quiz, you'll receive your case note materials. It will analyze a recent Minnesota Supreme Court decision and will include a general outline, history, current relevant law, implications of the opinion. You'll analyze whether you think the court got it right or wrong or something in between. And again, it's closed universe. So you'll receive a packet of sources that you will use. So you will not be able to do any research on your own outside of that case packet. I would say typically most people read or at least skim the entire case packet, but you're not necessarily utilizing every single thing in there. You'll decide what is most relevant to your own argument. The case note is a minimum 8 pages of text and 6 pages of endnotes, or those citations, double space. So then we also have a 4-page buffer that can be used in those text or endnotes. Those abbreviations are above the line, below the line. So that means an 18-page maximum. Doesn't necessarily mean that if you write a full 18 pages, it's going to be a better case note. We think you can do it with those 8 pages of text and 6 pages of endnotes, but we do have that buffer depending how you want to develop your argument. Stephen, any other thoughts on the case note? Oh, you're muted.
Little button there. No, not that I have. Carver, did you want to step in on anything to do with that?
You probably don't know how to write a case note quite yet, because that's something that you're not taught in LARC. We have our How to Write a Case Note presentation with Professor Steenson on Thursday evening this week. Myself and Theo are other NCE that's not here tonight will be hosting that and be able to answer specific questions about kind of writing at that time. Although at no point during that process are we going to tell you what's in the case note. The note itself is something that you are going to find out for the first time when we send it to you during the process. So more information on that to come.
Thanks. And I just want to say too, I know there's a lot of sessions. There's this one, there's 2 more, and it's a really busy time of the semester. So they will all be recorded, and no worries if you feel like you can't attend all these things right now. I know last year I did not watch them in real time. I just went back and watched them before starting the write-on process. And so feel free to do that as well. And there's that session that Stephen Carver was just talking about. And you'll also get a handbook with a lot of useful information too. Okay, and then another just fun fact about the case note is that one submission will likely be selected for publication in volume 51, which means that you would continue to work on it and refine it, and then it would be published. And that would satisfy your long paper requirement, so you would have the chance to kind of get a lot of that out of the way. Okay, so just a few tips and tricks for a successful write-on. So it's a 3-week process in total, but that's a time window and not a time commitment requirement. We try to set it up so that if you're working full-time or you have families or things like that, you should be able to do it. We try to give you a few weekends in there as well. It will take a significant amount of time, but you know, depending on how you prioritize your time and resources, it's definitely doable. Again, that blue book quiz comes first. That's the lighter lift of the 2, and it has a shorter time window to reflect that. You'll use the white pages and using that index to help you find the right thing. You'll also have access to local rules and the write-on handbook to help you with that, and that's worth 40% of the total write-on score. The case note comes next, using only those provided sources. Using that 2 weeks, they can go really fast. So you want to keep yourself on track and just diligently keep working on it. And that's worth 60% of your write-on score. I do think there's a tendency for people to really want to perfect the case note. But again, we really realize that you're doing this in a 2-week time span. So we just really encourage you to finish it and meet that length requirement and turn it in. That's the best advice we can give, I think. And a few other opportunities. We've mentioned some of these already to get some more information. We have some frequently asked questions on our website, which is the Mitchell-Hamlin Law Review website, not the Mitchell-Hamlin General website. That how to write a case note session coming up, the how to blue book session. Again, you can watch those after the fact. You can always send us an email, the mhsl.submissions@gmail.com, or if you know a board member, you can ask any one of us as well. All right, I'm going to move on to questions, and go ahead and put them in the chat, or you can raise your virtual hand on Zoom and I can call on people.
And just as people are getting their questions together, so just to be clear about the process itself, in order to get to the case note, you have to submit the blue book, right? So you have to submit that by the deadline in order to move on to the case note process. So, and then obviously to be considered, you need to be able to submit that case note. So as Michaela mentioned, there's going to be pieces that you might be thinking, oh, I might be missing that. I might be missing that. Is this good enough? Submit it, right? Just make sure you get in by the deadline, either move on to the case note, and then same thing with the case note as Michaela mentioned. So just wanted to second that, and you even have this feeling of satisfaction of completing the process, right? And because it is a process that does challenge you, right? And you are wrestling with that blue book, unless it comes to you easy, it didn't for me, right? But you're wrestling with that, and then you're also wrestling with this new way of writing, because it's not like Lark, right? Obviously there's skills that you build, but it's a different skill you got to learn. So even just completing write-on process, you have this feeling of satisfaction. I know, and I did. So just wanted to make sure I shared that as well.
Right, and I realized I forgot to say one thing. So these deadlines are firm. We have a pretty short turnaround time for being able to get offers out, which we try to do before OCI, summer OCI. However, if you have an emergency or like an extenuating circumstance, please reach out. We would like to know and see if there's something that we can do, but that's for an emergency or extenuating circumstance. Otherwise, these deadlines are firm. Okay, I've got a couple of questions. How many associates are brought on each year? Do you know, Carissa or Sophie, anyone off the top of your head, how many we have? 50?
Yeah, it varies from year to year slightly, but for example, for volume 50, there's 48 associates. So something similar to that is typically what happens from year to year.
Okay, then I have a question. What's the likelihood that we'll get admitted once we write on? It really depends on how many people write on and the scores of those applications. I will say though, the biggest hurdle is finishing the whole process. A lot of people finish the Blue Book quiz and do not finish the case note. And so if you complete the whole process, your likelihood is fairly good, I would say. But again, it depends on the year and who applies and how many and things like that. Someone asked, is 2 years the maximum? Can one apply as a blended during 1L and defer to 2L? I think you would, if you mean defer by not participate until the following year, I don't think so, but correct me if I'm misinterpreting your question.
Unable to play on your Bluetooth phone.
Let's see, Sakina, you have your hand raised.
Yes. I just wanted to say I really like to see that Law Review was offering classes to improve on your Blue Book citation as well as how to write a case note. Like you said, it wasn't anything like LARC, so I was perplexed as to what I was going to lean on in getting this done as correctly as possible. So I really appreciate that because that's a session that I'm looking forward to attending.
Thanks, that's great feedback.
And those that the Blue Book kind of intimidates them a little bit, the people that are running the one on a week from tomorrow on the 29th, they are wizards at it, right? So they are going to kind of help break it down for you. And obviously not telling you what's on the Blue Book quiz, but they'll just help you guide, like, what do I do, right? How do I meander through all of that? So that's going to be very helpful.
Dan, I want to go back to your question and just let me know if I answered it. I don't think we do like a deferred enrollment, but if you are, Carissa or Sophie, correct me if I'm wrong, if you apply during 1L as a blended student and you have 4 years, you can participate all the 3 remaining years. Is that right?
What previous blended students have done, there's somebody who graduated last fall. They were an associate their 2L year. They were, I think, a managing editor their 3L year, and then they were a contributing editor for the final semester that they were a student. So there are different things you can do, but we don't defer. So if you didn't want to participate as a 2L, then you would just wait to do right on the following year.
Yeah, I think the only concern is that a long paper as an associate seems daunting with the 2L schedule compared to the extra freedom and the more knowledge of the track we're taking in our 3rd year.
Yeah, and there are blended students who have done their long paper, who have been an associate as a 2L, done their long paper in the fall, or who have waited and written on as a rising 3L and done their long paper then. So my judgment, and I'll be honest, I'm a BAM student, so either of the Stevens would have more insight than I would, but it kind of comes down to a judgment call of what you think will work best for you. The long paper is a kind of a lift whenever you do it, to be honest, and in whatever capacity you do it. But doing it through Law Review, there's a lot of freedom to do the way that you do it through Law Review. You can really choose what you do and how you do it.
And at the same time, there's a lot of support, which I really appreciated. It's freedom and also support.
Thank you.
I see Stephen answered Alexander's question. Is there a specific number of associates? The answer is no. It does depend on how many people write on and what their applications look like.
Looks like we've got a question from James here that I can try and take a stab at. In the case note exercise, clearly the grader will have an opinion on whether the court got it right or wrong, but how do they level the field for applicants who argue for the other side? More importantly, how might that change if we make it onto law review and want to write on a truly controversial real world case? So in the grading, we are not going to be critiquing you based on your political stance, right? We are looking for your effort as a writer. We're looking for your effort as a reader. We want to see you that you understand the case, that you understand the legal position being held by the Minnesota Supreme Court, and that you can take a position on it. We don't particularly, it's not relevant to your capacity to participate in the law review to have a particular opinion about how the Minnesota Supreme Court operates. As for writing your long paper later and the sort of topics that you might choose, again, I don't think I've heard anybody's topic be flat out rejected for, any degree of controversial topics, right? People write about very serious issues all the time because they're important to the practitioners in the legal world, and those are the kinds of things we look for to publish because that's important. So if it's something you're passionate about, we want to hear it. So
Yeah, I would also say just another thing to kind of alleviate any concern you might have about like a biased grader or something like that. Every application gets graded separately by 2 people, just to help us make sure that there's a variety of viewpoints and then that gets averaged. So it won't just be one single person holding like your fate in their hands or anything. Okay, can you share a little bit about what the experience is like once someone becomes an associate? Are there regular meetings, for example, general sense of time commitment? Anybody want to particularly take that? Go ahead.
I can jump into that one. So I'll share my experience and what that looked like. So as mentioned in one of those first slides, for once you're an associate, you're dealing with the notes and comments editor for your long paper. You're dealing with that, and they're helping you through that process. And then in terms of that experience, that's every couple of weeks or so when you have an assignment from the journal, that's your managing editor, and they're all going to do it just a little bit differently. But obviously, that's in coordination with Chris and Sophie in terms of the process that they're doing as well. But for us, for me, last year, my managing editor, what they did is that they had office hours during the weeks where we had an article due. And as an associate, there's different levels of editing that you're going to do on the paper, right? Sometimes you're really digging deep into it, whether it's grammar or whether it's the citations. And then there's different levels based on article, and again, what Chris and Sophie kind of decide with that with the board members. So depending on what level you're doing, you'll get a little more time. Sometimes it's 7 days, sometimes it's 10 days, whatever that, again, the publication timeline is. And during those weeks is when you have those office hours, when it's due, right? You're working on it, you're assigned this date, and it's due this date. In that window, you have office hours that you can attend. And then obviously you're working on that and fit that into your schedule. When you don't have an assignment, right? When another team is working on it, when they get that next level, when you hand it off to the next team, then you're kind of sitting, lying in wait, taking care of some of the other stuff that you have going on in your life. So that's the rhythm that goes a little bit to do as an associate, and it's really based on that managing editor and how they incorporate those office hours. So I see Chris wants to add something there.
Yeah,
Please do.
I was just gonna add to that too. Like, I found it to be a welcome balance in my schedule of all of the other classes that you're doing, just because it's different work than what you're doing in your classes. It's not like doing your reading assignments and doing your writing assignments for class. It's something different, and you don't have an assignment every week. It's spread out. Like, I think somebody mentioned like a couple of times a month is probably about approximately, I think, what we did this year as associates if you spread it all out throughout the year. So it's nice because it's a change of pace, and it's also not 100% of the time. So it's different from your classes in that way, is that you don't really get a reprieve from your classes, but you do with law review. And so it's just nice in that way because you do get those breaks. And yeah, go ahead, Stephen Carver.
Yeah, I'll also just talk so very briefly. You asking about time commitment. Your long paper is also a time commitment. We've sort of alluded to it, but just to be really clear, you could pick to use your fall semester or your spring semester to write your long paper. We tend to encourage people to use the fall semester because it's longer. It's a longer semester, so you're going to have more time to kind of flesh that out. Different people have different experiences for how much time they spend writing their long paper. For example, I think Sophie and I both wrote extremely long papers, and it probably commanded a lot of our time, whereas others write something closer to the 40-page requirement. That's kind of where we're expecting you to have a lot of self-determination and scheduling on your own part to kind of figure out how much time you need to spend on things. The NCEs ourselves, we have deadlines set for you across the course of a semester for keeping you generally on track with the completion of your long paper. But more on that later, I think. Anyway, Sophie.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have associates who are full-time students, part-time students. They have part-time jobs, full-time jobs. We have somebody who gave birth 3 weeks before the semester started, somebody who gave birth 2 weeks after the semester started, and they were associates. So it is something that you can integrate with the rest of your life. And we also know, and the MEs know, and Chris and I know, that emergencies do happen. So, you know, I had a conflict with an assignment recently, and my managing editor pulled in a contributing editor because she knew that I wouldn't be able to do an assignment for that week. So it's work, but it's a good pace, and it's manageable.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing too. I think there are not typically regular meetings. There may be things like office hours and such you can go to. There is a training at the beginning of the semester, but I find it to be a lot more flexible than the requirements of a class, for example. And you'll know in advance, like you're not going to usually get like an assignment is out of the blue. You know, you can reference the calendar, you can plan your life around it, and you can do it on your own time. Which I really appreciate. I have a busy schedule. It's nice to be able to like slot it in when it works and not have a specific time I have to do something. Does somebody want to talk a little bit more about how the board positions are chosen and what they do?
I can do that. Yeah. So if you come on board with us for volume 51 as an associate, then that will mean that you can apply then to be a board member for volume 52. So if that's something you're interested in, I hope you are, keep that in mind. It's super fun to be a board member because you kind of get to build these skills, see what the nitty-gritty aspects of editing and publishing looks like as an associate. Like people said, get mentorship from your board, and then you get to think about what sort of leadership you like to do and what sort of area you like to work in, and then apply to lead people in that position. So there's different buckets of board members. So we have the folks who are our notes and comments editors here with us tonight, Michaela, Steve, and Steve. And so they're the group that does what we're doing right now. They do recruitment. They guide people along the process of writing their long papers. We have another group, managing editors. They're the people that the NCEs mentioned. They're like the cheerleaders and the team managers for their associate teams. So what you'll be doing next year, you'll all have a managing editor. So if you like kind of fostering a group of people and rallying them together and working on something together, you might be a really good managing editor. We also have something called contributing editors, which is a very flexible board position where you get to you don't have to take 5 full credits. Actually, you can sort of pick how many credits you want to do and then what area you're interested in sort of filling in gaps. Sophie mentioned that a contributing editor jumped in and helped edit a range that she couldn't do. So that's another board position. And then we have articles editors, and articles editors are like the very, very start of the publication process. They're the ones who are going out and soliciting articles from practitioners and professors. Yeah, and just people that we think might have something that we'd want to publish. And so, yeah, did I forget one? Am I forgetting? I mean, then there's Sophie and
Your
I.
own.
Yeah, then there's editor-in-chief and associate editor-in-chief, and you get to just guide the whole ship. So I hope you're interested in one of those, because even though it's a ways away, I would encourage you to think about it, because it's a really great reason to just be an associate, because you'll have the chance to take on a really interesting leadership position the next year if you want that. But you don't have to. You also don't have to do it. You can just be an associate if you want to, and not do a board position. Just, it is an option for you if you are an associate, though.
Any other questions? I think I've gotten through everything in the chat. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap up then, but remember those upcoming sessions, or to watch those recordings at a later date. And if you think of additional questions, you can reach out to that general email that was in the slide, or you can email one of us directly. And this will be on the Mitchell Hamlin Law Review website, the recording, if you want to reference it later. And we hope you all write on. We really want to encourage you to do it. I know it can seem daunting, but I think really you all can do it. And it's just, it's the end of the semester. You might be a little tired and you just got to persevere to do it. But I'm confident that all of you could do it. So
Just do it. Do the right on.
do the right on, and then
Yeah.
All you have to do is finish. That's all we ask.
Mhm.
Go from there. Thank you, everybody, for signing on.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Thank you.